welcome to Sassy and Single. I'm your host, Natalie Sady. Last time on Sassy and Single, we were talking all about breaking up positive because you can't step into a new relationship until you let go of the old. So today, joining me, I have a matchmaker extraordinaire, Faith Busby. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I have so many questions about matchmakers because I've never had to deal with one before. But first of all, I want to know, how do you even become a matchmaker?
Well, I think it's like a really interesting question because a lot of the people that I meet have either heard of matchmaking before and some of them have not. So it's very like hit or miss depending on where I am. If I'm in a finance conference or if I'm at Starbucks or something like this, people either recognize like, oh yeah, I've heard of matchmaking, like my friend's aunt one time like used one or whatever it is. And then other times I'll be out and about and people will be like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. Like, wait, stop. Well, the friend's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, so it just depends like what their sort of previous experiences may have been, whether good, bad, they've heard of a matchmaker or they have no idea. That's like where I sort of want to start with people, like, have you heard of matchmaking or not? And if not, okay. So for me, it was so random how I got into matchmaking. It was not my education. It was not my, college degrees in interior design. It's not in matchmaking. But over the course of my 20s, I had a lot of jobs that were in sort of personal relationship businesses, like real estate, property management. We were dealing with all these like emotional decisions when it comes to like selling their house. So one day I was just, on the couch with my sister in our living room, single, ready to like maybe get married in the future, looking a bit more seriously. And I started Googling like what is out there. And I came across online dating and I thought, okay, and this was prior to Tinder. This was pre-Tinder.
Okay.
Right? So this is like just Google websites.
It's tough to remember a time before Tinder.
Right. But now everyone knows what it is. So
Yeah,
it's like easier as a matchmaker because you can reference that and no one's like, oh, but I have this like other option. Like everyone knows what Tinder is now. And so at the time there was no Bumble, no Tinder, none of that. And there was just like eHarmony, Match and things. So I went on to an actual like old school website for traditional matchmaking instead of like an annual or monthly membership. I wanted to like talk to someone on the phone, like who are these people and like what's going on with this. And so I didn't hear anything for like 2 years. Just like forgot about it, radio silence, like nothing. And then one day I randomly got a phone call and I met with the CEO and we talked about like dating and relationships and like what we're looking for. And then they said, after speaking with you, we have this like really, interesting client. She's a female. Do you have anyone for her to meet? And I pulled out my phone and showed her like some of my friends and pictures of them. And she said, you're hired. And so that's like where my whole career went, like from here to here really quickly. Within like 1 year, I was like traveling the world.
So did you contact them for a job or did you contact them to try and be set up and it turned into a job?
Right, exactly. Like at the time I was single and then 2 years later, they called me and I had boyfriends in the interim.
Yeah.
So when they did call me, it was to like originally to go on a date. And then the guy that they had interviewed me for, they're like, no, he's not right for you. He's older and you want to get married and you want kids. So we're not going to introduce you to him. So I never even met the guy. I just like got hired.
I love the way the universe works. I'm a big believer in fate. And I think that sometimes we just end up in a place where we're meant to be. And to me, this sounds like a perfect example.
It's a really spiritual and awesome journey to participate with a company that is literally every day they walk into their office and their job is to like put people together.
Yeah.
And they do it in such a qualified way where there's an extensive questionnaire. Takes people a long time to answer the questions and what they want. So if that's your job every day, like for me, I felt like that was very rewarding.
Well, it would be, especially if you're getting happily ever afters as the outcome. So before we get into the whole process, what are your personal opinions on dating apps like Tinder, like Bumble? Good, bad, indifferent?
I think originally when those apps came out, not a lot of people knew what they were. So people who are definitely searching for a relationship or to meet people for dating, they were the first like pioneers that were going on these apps that were somehow finding them, researching them. But now it's changed a lot, like over the course of the last 5 years. So I believe that now they're very oversaturated. So there's a really high probability of a miss. Like there's not a lot of actual outcomes with dating apps anymore because people communicate differently, men and women. So I find that it's more difficult to use them now than when they first came out.
I've always had a theory that when people are signing up to these apps and even dating websites, they're not necessarily honest about who they are when they put up their profile. Sometimes they just lie. I've known people that are smokers and they put that they're a non-smoker because they don't want to make the pool any smaller, and then that obviously becomes an issue later on. But there are also the people that just don't have the self-awareness, I think, that that they even know who they are. So they put up that they're, you know, really active, they love being outdoors and they love doing all these different things. And then you look at a photo of them, and it's not to say that there's anything wrong with this, but they clearly don't spend a lot of time outdoors. And I sort of look at that, and that's been a reason why I've kind of avoided, I think, signing up to any of them. And I just, do you find the same thing, or?
Absolutely. I think if you were to compare it to matchmaking, how many minutes does it take to create a Tinder profile, right? Mm-hmm. You say, I love hiking, I love good food. Okay, you start texting somebody, I go to Nobu all the time. It doesn't take a lot of effort to portray, even if they're kind of making themselves sound better than they are. It doesn't take a lot of time to do that. Whereas with matchmaking, you're talking to someone on the phone, you're taking a meeting, you're coming into the office, like you're spending hours or days, you know, really getting to know who you're working with. So it would be very, very difficult for them to pretend that they're somebody else. And we do a lot of research. So we're actually finding them out, you know, their social media websites and all of their background reports, things like that. It'd be much more difficult to pretend you're somebody that you're not. I found in my experience, though, a really good point that you said, one of your questions was, like, what if somebody's not being honest about what they want, you know, if they're looking for a relationship? So what we do is we really have to get to the core of who this person is and really find out, are they lying to themselves about what they want? Are they more focused on work right now, but they kind of want to meet new women or new guys? Well, what's the real deal here? And oftentimes that doesn't really come out until the second or third date. And the third date, their person will say, the feedback is, okay, they're really into work and they don't really seem invested. And then you can have a conversation with your client like, hey, you know, you told me that you wanted to date. Like, do you really want to? Like, we can put your membership on hold. So you can kind of have that like tough love and kind of pull back and see if that's really truly what they want.
Are these people receptive to comments or feedback like that, where you're questioning sort of what they've originally told you and you're saying, hey, we're getting the impression that that's not the case? Are they generally receptive, or do they get upset with you for that?
I think oftentimes like people they're just so different. Like every person, it really depends on what their needs are and what their expectations were coming into it. So as long as like both people are honest about what their expectations are and what they can deliver or when they can show up, then you have the best positive outcome.
Do you think apps versus matchmaking, because obviously the matchmaking is more about dating to actually meet someone to be in a relationship, or that's sort of at least originally what the plan is. But do you find apps are more for hookups, and that it's becoming more prevalent these days that people don't want to date because to hook up with somebody thanks to these apps has made it so easy?
Absolutely, 100%. I think there's a lot more concern and worry going into a date because you're not really sure. If you met them online or on a dating app, you're not sure what they're really there for. So I think men and women get like really nervous, like, what am I doing? You know, or maybe they don't take it so seriously. So there's definitely a higher probability of a less positive outcome when you're meeting somebody for the first time through a dating app.
Because I just find as I've gotten older, and I'm happy to date and I'm happy to go on a date with someone where there isn't, it's, you know, just to let the date be what it is. It's a great night, you have good company, hopefully, and you then sort of walk away, and it either leads to a second date or it doesn't. But I do find that more and more people you'll go on a date and you'll get a message when it's over, you know, I had a great time, all of that. And then there's radio silence. And for me, I just go, you know, they're not that into me, and that's totally fine. but then I'm getting messages 2 months later, hey, how's it going? They're staying present enough that they want you to know that they're there, but then there's sort of nothing.
There's like a
but
term
there's
for
nothing
that
else.
There's a term for it. There's ghosting, right, where you don't hear from them ever again. And then there's this like evolving, I think it's called like evolving or revolving, something like this. I need to come up with what the actual term is. I can't remember.
Sure, we'll look it up.
They kind of like circle around distantly, or they like your Instagram, but they're not really calling you to meet in person, or they check in with you every few months and they're just like circling around in a distance.
I don't understand.
Ridiculous.
I don't know if this is a newer thing, if it's been going on for forever and we're just talking about it.
I think it's
more.
newer. I think it has like become this like socially acceptable thing because people get busy, or they close a deal, or they're back together with their ex, or maybe they weren't even single all along, right? Because their person's out of town. Seriously, I hate to sound like jaded, but sometimes that can be true. So for matchmaking, the difference is it's like more accountability. Like, I don't know if you've heard of accountability coaches or whatever, but basically if a client isn't connecting with their date again, there has to be a reason why. So we find out what the reason is, and we either close the chapter, move on, next person, or we like say, hey, this is an ongoing like repetitive pattern that many of the people we've introduced you to have said, what's going on? Like, how can we help you? What can we do to like make sure that you're reaching out again and, you know, following through on a potential new relationship, you know, and we kind of coach them along and hold them accountable and like reach out to them and say, hey, your date hasn't heard from you in a couple of weeks. Like, can you let me know? Even if it's just like an email, it's not like a big deal. We're not like harassing them with like 1,000 phone calls. Like, everyone's busy, I totally understand. But it's more like after a few months or after a course of meeting 3 or 4 individuals, if this is a repetitive pattern, you gotta like figure it out. Like, what's going on?
And just letting somebody know. I think I'm never bothered if somebody's not into me. Like, I get it. We're not all compatible, but sometimes I sit there and just think, just tell me.
Right.
Tell me if you're going to keep reaching out, just tell me what's going on. Like, I really want to see you again. I need to deal with this.
Right. And it seems like they're maybe not serious.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very common in our society now, where it's like, we're all so distracted by like accomplishing our goals, right? Everyone wants to be super successful, I think, most people, or they have a really busy 9 to 5 to pay their bills. I think just it comes down to like effort. Like, you have to want to make an effort.
I sometimes feel as if it's these guys just wanting their ego stroked. Do you know what I mean? Like, to reach
really
out.
Have to figure that out.
Yeah, to reach out sort of once a month or once every couple of months. And, you know, I had it over Christmas and New Year's. There was somebody I hadn't seen in months, and then I got, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all of these things. And I'm thinking, are you doing this just so that you know I'm still there, or so that you convince yourself that you can have me, or are you trying to get me to chase you? Like, I do get a very strong sense that a lot of these men are wanting to be chased. It's like they're waiting for the roles to be reversed from traditionally what we're used to.
I think whatever you want to do in your heart, like, my best advice would just be like, go for it. In the end, if it doesn't work out, okay, you learn. You're not going to like be upset at yourself for following through and figuring out, okay, is this Merry Christmas message something I want to reply to? If I want to reply to it, reply. Is this going to end up being a date? If not, just find someone else. Like, you know, there's a lot of guys out there. You could always see what happens with this like random Merry Christmas revolve text that comes through. And if nothing happens, like, then you find someone else and you're in a relationship, and when his like, you know, Happy Valentine's Day text comes through, you're like, well, I'm not replying because now I have a boyfriend.
Well, it's never been an issue for me in terms of being upset that they're doing this. It's more, I'm someone that likes to know. I like to understand why things happen and why people are doing the things they're doing. And it's part of the joy of this show, discovering all these different avenues and ways to do things. It's more a curiosity, I think, about the behaviour and the reasoning behind it. But so you've talked about working with clients individually and figuring out patterns and helping them to break certain patterns or achieve certain things. So how much one-on-one attention do your clients get when they sign up?
So a lot. Like, it's almost like hiring a realtor or a hairstylist or somebody that you're always calling, like your lawyer. And although we're not charging per hour, like for phone calls, like a lawyer would, we're not like that. But it's whatever is necessary for the client. they get to kind of have someone that they can reach out to and talk about stuff and figure out what's going on, what the next steps are. My biggest thing is like, I love to support people who will just take action and go for it. And then like you had this question, like why? But the only way to find that out is to just live and learn and like move forward, take risks, you know, hold yourself accountable for your actions and just have fun like on the journey of like finding out who's who and what's what. And that's always how I've been growing up, and I think that will help in dating to kind of see what this person is when they're just reaching out. And then you'll know, maybe they're just trying to boost their ego. Maybe they're in a relationship, they're getting out of it soon. You never know until you like find out.
And so how many clients do you work with at any given time? Do you have like a book full of people that you're working with, or is it a smaller number?
It's really kind of like a referral-based system, I think. Timing is really important in matchmaking. So like if I have a client and I'm looking for maybe a specific person, I'll look within my network, you know, our private database, and then I'll like be out and about, or somebody say, hey, my cousin's, you know, free now or whatever it is, and then I can kind of see if they're a good match. And if the timing works, somebody new comes up that's really good, then I'll definitely want to work with them, or have people just reach out to me like, hey, I heard you're matchmaking, I'm single, can we talk about this? And I've known them for 10 years and all of a sudden they're coming out of the woodwork. So it just depends. We work with a lot of people all over the world. I have like, you know, all these little avenues that I use for connecting people. And so it just depends. And yeah, like it really depends on the person. If they want to go on a date a week, if they want 3 dates a month, if they want like a phone call every Friday saying like, hey, here's your date tomorrow. So it just depends on the person.
And I was having a look at the website earlier, and you're literally international. You've got offices in Vancouver and all across the US. Are you all in contact with each other about the people that you're meeting and who you have in your database, or do you sort of reach out to each other if you've got someone that's sort of in their area or traveling over there? How does that work?
So the way it works is like we work as a team. If we have a client who travels to 3 different cities regularly for work, we're going to be on the phone with the person who's in that city, like Vancouver or New York. Even if I'm in LA, like I'm going to be like, hey, this is him. Who do you have? What can we do? And we'll work together.
Okay.
Because we want to have the best possible outcome. We want them to go on a date. We want to get them out with as many people to find their person. Because I don't think you meet your person in your first date. You have to kind of go on more dates than just one. So we'll work together and try and get as many possible opportunities as we can. And does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And so what sort of ratio of happy endings do you have with the clients that come to work with you? Because, I mean, obviously you would get some where it just doesn't work, it's not a good fit. You would have some that maybe aren't as ready for a relationship as they think that they are coming into it. But what's the outcome, or how many do you sort of get that come back and say, I've met my person, I'm proposed, I'm married, we're having babies?
A lot. I mean, the success rate is pretty high. I think we have a good recipe for how to have the most positive outcome. I think like one of the tools that we use for successful engagements and marriages within our company, or just even going on hold, like I don't want to meet anyone else, I'm focusing on this one gal or this one guy. That is, feedback is really important, and then also presenting the date to our client and saying, I've spoken on the phone with this person, I met them in person, like this is who they are, and really like understanding what the meaning is for the date and who the person is before you're gonna meet them. And then they talk on the phone or they'll exchange texts and meet up, plan their own date. Like I'm not planning the date, I'm just giving the phone number after I've presented this person and who they really are, because that's important. I think it's to know like who you're meeting and why it's a good idea, and then you feel more comfortable going out.
And do both sides get to see photos of the other one before they go on the date?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to like, you know, blind dates are very hard. I'd rather my clients just be open and have fun and not be mad at me. I'm like, okay, what do you need here and how can we make it work? So it just depends, again, on the person. Some people don't even need to see pictures. They're just like, I trust you, like, just send it out, like, let's, we'll get it going. Other people need photos, and we also do really extensive research, background checks. We'll do a huge, I've done portfolios for options for my clients or future clients to see, with a full CV and pictures and who their family is and what their background is and what their pedigree is. So it can get very, very detailed as well.
So, okay, one of my things about dating is, for me, I can talk about the traits that I want in a partner, but the reality is there is an underlying thing which for me is bigger than what someone looks like or whether they're funny and whether we get along in that respect, because I meet plenty of people that I connect with and have a really good time with, but there is just something else which is that X factor that is undeniable. Do you find that comes up a lot, where on paper people seem to be a perfect match and you get them together and they kind of walk away going, eh?
Yeah, it happens. But I think chemistry can only be found like in person. You can't know chemistry
1,000%.
like in the profile. And then when they go out, just like, hopefully it works. And, I find that in my experience, can't match necessarily the type A business people, two of them together. Sometimes they just sit there and talk about business the whole time. And that's why, like, in my experience, you never know if that's gonna happen or if you need to match like an artist with a lawyer, like somebody that has like more different type of chemistry.
So they're able to balance each other out a little bit.
There's no recipe, there's no rhyme or reason, there's no like equation that's going to make it work with chemistry every single time. You just literally don't know what is going to happen, but you can like do your best to make sure that it could be possibly a good match.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
And do you ever have clients, or have you ever had phone calls from someone that you've sort of sent out on a date with one of your clients and you get a phone call saying, oh my goodness, that was disastrous and this is why, and you learn a very different side to that individual?
Yeah, the feedback is really important, whether it's the client or we'll match them with somebody from our network. So the feedback on who they are on the actual date is really, really valuable. So we hold everybody accountable. They have to call us, tell us how it's going, what happened, what are the details. And it's really fun. It's like when you're in high school and you're sharing stories about like, this happened and this happened.
Oh my God, it's basically gossiping.
Yeah, it's like
but
crazy.
With
but
a
like
reason.
you're setting somebody up and then you get to hear about it, and it's really confidential. We're very, very private. We're not going to share any of the information. It's like ironclad, like a doctor, like, no, we don't share any info. But it's really good to see that side of like what they're like on the date, and that's helpful for their next match.
Because a girlfriend of mine, I was talking about sitting down with you and I was really excited to be able to learn more about matchmaking, and my friend said, I was set up through a matchmaker this one time, and she was telling me about this person she'd been set up with. It was in another city. And they never made it to the date because the phone call was so atrocious.
Oh my God.
And he was so aggressive and patronising. And he was somebody that was obviously used to leading with money. And she called the matchmaking service and said, I'm really sorry, I can't do this. This is why. And they were obviously mortified. They didn't know that that's what was going on. And then they sort of said, can we please set you up with somebody else? And then it went from there. But it was it was a very shocking moment where...
Well, she dodged a bullet because she made sure that date never happened. And I think that's important because, again, it's not going to be just one person to kind of date a lot of people. And so it sounds like, men can come across different, women can, than who they're trying to, maybe they're trying to impress someone or overcompensating, or maybe your friend was like gorgeous and this guy was like really nervous about it and just played the wrong card. Yeah. And hopefully he learned, hopefully his matchmakers like worked with him and got him on a better track.
Well, hopefully. And see, this is a problem with hearing this story from her rather than the matchmakers. I don't know how the story ends, and it kills me because we've established I need to know. Okay, so if you had one dating tip that you think everybody should know, what would that be?
I think my best dating tip, just off the top of my head, like, I don't know. I mean, there's like so many like dating tips. I don't know. I guess, be comfortable before your date. Don't drink a bunch of alcohol. Don't like
Yeah, that always
call your
goes
ex-boyfriend, like don't, whatever it is, don't do it, okay? And then also I think just like give yourself enough time. I think for a good date, you should always be prepared, have a cute outfit, you know, do what makes you feel good, whether that's like getting your eyelashes done or, you know, having a massage. If you have time, like plan your outfit like the night before, try it on. Just go into it like calm and happy and not, if you can avoid some stress, like try your best to just do things for yourself before your date. Because I have a lot of friends that will call me and say, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm going to take a shot of vodka, whatever, tequila. And I'm like, oh no, it's probably not a good idea. Just give yourself enough time to feel confident and sexy and like have fun. Same with people who have kids, okay? Stuff comes up, but try your best like to just leave whatever it is at the door and just like go into your date like open and confident. You know, I was with someone, he went on his first date. His kids had an emergency. He had to go pick them up, and he lives in LA, so it took him like an extra hour to get to where he was going because of traffic, because he had to give his children a ride. And he got to the date just so stressed out. And I'm like, okay, you have to almost look at it like you're an athlete. Like just leave your stress at the door, come in, have a nice time.
So much easier said than done, because I know that having stepped into blind dates and it's just
not for everyone.
It's the worst feeling, but at the same time, once you sort of sit down, you kind of do have to let it all go. There's nothing else you can do.
Dating's not easy. Going on a first date is very difficult. It's super awkward. Nobody likes it, but maybe some people do. I didn't mind going on dates when I was single and I was in my early 20s. I liked it. It was fun. I liked meeting people.
Oh, it's always fun going on the date. The issue for me is walking into that first one. You work yourself up to such a state, and then once I sit down, we either get along or I know that I'm not into them, and so then it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely,
there is that moment, but it's stepping just into that and into the unknown with this person that you don't know.
I think that's a difficult challenge for matchmakers, is to just get their people on the date. That's probably one of the hardest parts of my job, is to like have the follow through happen. Okay, you talked on the phone, like now it's time to go on the date. And that can be a challenge, but I think people realize like it's worth it because they're on this journey to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, to find their husband. So, yeah.
And if people want to reach out to you and talk to you more about the whole matchmaking thing, how do they get in touch with you?
They can email me, they can pick up the phone, they can call me. You know, I work all the time. I open my eyes in the morning, I'm working. I'm like on my computer, on my phone all the time when I travel, so anytime.
And so your Insta or your website, which is best, and what is it?
Sure, they can go on my Instagram. It's @faith.matchmaker. They can reach me there. I try my best to answer like every single thing, whether it's, you know, relevant or not. If it's matchmaking or not, I will reach out and respond. So they can do my Instagram @faith.matchmaker, or they can email me. My email's on my Instagram as well.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really
so
appreciate
fun.
it. That's the episode of Sassy and Single. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, I'm Natalie Sady.